of the possibility, now of course you talk about being acquitted, you would assume that, of course.
Yes.
Could a genuine case be made on the part of the presiding judge that the whole thing should be thrown out before it even gets as far as a jury ruling? I mean, could a case be made that this is all frivolous, this is ridiculous, and throw it out with prejudice?
That can happen, and we've seen that in Oklahoma County. Judge McAwee last year threw out all the indictments against the businessmen who had impeccable reputations, who served on the Hinton Economic Development Authority, and who were indicted on a theory of law that had previously been rejected by the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals. And nevertheless, these men have to suffer that stigma. Now, Judge McAwee had the guts and the courage to throw it out. Now, the state's appeal, we'll see what the Court of Criminal Appeals will do. But most magistrates who hear these cases are reluctant to dismiss them. Now, Judge McAwee is an exception because she was a district judge. Before she was appointed a magistrate, she lost an election, and because she was such an outstanding judge, the other judges appointed her a magistrate, so she stayed as a judge. And so she, quite frankly, said, this is not a crime. And quite frankly found that the way the grand jury operated violated the Oklahoma Constitution and threw it out.
What do you, and this is a rhetorical question, I admit, but if we're reached a point where a Democratic Attorney General can simply decide on his own, in effect, to use the law as an instrument to harm his political opponents, is there any moral or practical difference between that happening here in Oklahoma and similar things happening in Cuba or Zimbabwe or Beijing? From a moral and practical standpoint, if the law is going to be used to harm one's political opponents, isn't that by definition part of what you expect to see in police states?
Well, it is, and it's of course always the reason that our liberty is in jeopardy, is people with power who use that power wrongly, who subvert the law for their own gain. Now, the next target of the Attorney General's office appears to be the people that organize the Tabor petition. Well, they'll be the next ones, and we'll see what happens there. But yes, this is a threat to liberty, and it's a threat to the elected district attorney system, because I don't think district attorneys in Oklahoma recognize that what Edmondson is really trying to do, perhaps in good faith, but nevertheless it's, I think, improper, is create a dual system of prosecution. You have the district attorney system, and you have the attorney general system. Now, he's trying to shoehorn his office into the investigation of Mike Mass, Gene Stipe, and the other Democratic legislators that have been associated with that. The federal government will not let him do that, because if there's any attorney general in this country that the Department of Justice will not cooperate, it's with this attorney general, because Mr. Edmondson is seen by them as headline grabbing in the Bernie Ebers case. At a time when that massive fraud was under investigation, Edmondson, if you'll remember, charged Ebers in Oklahoma, jeopardizing all of the work that the federal government had done. And he had to back down, and they forced him to back down. And so it's clear that it's opportunistic, it's trophy grabbing, it's headline grabbing. It's not the way we do business in Oklahoma.
Well, I've got more questions, but let me let Steve get back in here. Yes,
we're coming down to about the last 5 minutes here, but one thing you mentioned that Tim Pope, that his legal expenses could mount to $100,000, or nobody knows for sure, and you know how those things are going to go. But you know, we can't openly solicit funds on the program, but for Tim Pope. But if anyone is, you know, I just would like to mention, if anyone is interested in helping Tim Pope, if they'll call me, then I can talk to them about how they can help Mr. Pope on that. But you know, Drew Edmondson, the way he's handled his whole office, like you know, he's been involved in suing the tobacco companies and suing the poultry farmers and all this sort of thing. And one of the side effects of that is that he has contracted out some of this prosecutorial work, legal work, to certain individuals. And it's interesting that many of the people that he has contracted out to have been contributors to his campaign. I wonder if somebody could possibly make the case there that there's a quid pro quo going on.
We don't know there's a quid pro quo, but clearly much of the state's legal business is contracted out to private firms, and the Riggs Abney firm is a large recipient of it, about $40 million worth. But they're not the only one. They're very capable lawyers, but the Attorney General has capable lawyers. A lot of that work should be done in-house. Edmondson had a very good record, I thought, the first 6 years. But in the last 2.5 years, it seems to me that much has gone awry. And it's disappointing to see such a gifted public servant steer off the path.
Yeah. And I know that we got about 2 minutes left here, but I did want to point out, one of the things that Drew Edmondson has been lauded for I've talked to some district attorneys, and they go, well, he's real strong on the death penalty. But I just wanted to, if I could, here, read a quote. And he was talking to the Death Penalty News, an anti-capital punishment publication. And he said, I'm an optimist. I think the time may come when we can fix it medically. We can figure out what causes someone to take another person's life and fix it. This seems like something out of a science fiction novel.
Well, it's also something out of the Third Reich. They had some interesting experiments there and the Soviets, by sending people like Alexander Solzhenitsyn and other critics to these mental hospitals to fix them.
Yeah. We've got about a minute left. Do you have another question, Gary?
In about a minute here and stuff, can the legislature do something to rein this in so this doesn't happen again?
Yes. And I think that hopefully in the next session of the legislature there'll be more oversight of the Attorney General's office, both as to their spending habits and the use of outside law firms and the use of civil lawsuits against industry and people in Oklahoma.
Excellent.
Okay. Well, I certainly appreciate you being on the program, and I appreciate the courage that you've shown here, because sometimes attorneys for people that are being prosecuted can become targets themselves. So I hope that we don't have to have your lawyer on someday. Okay. Thank you for being with us this evening, and join us next time for another edition of Oklahoma Politics and You.